You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your host, Keith Wheeler.
And Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today is a slightly different one. We're going to do an Amazon Ads Q&A. And I think this is a really interesting one because we do get lots of questions from people about Amazon Ads. And I think that for me, Amazon Ads have always been one of those things that I never really understood completely. And the way I deal with them now is that or what I think now of Amazon Ads is that every book is different, so every ad is different as well. And there's no formula that you can teach that covers everything. There's certain things that you can say what good practices are and things like that, right. But I find it really hard to find a formula that works for me. What do you think about that? Is there a formula that you could teach?
I would say if there was any formula, it would be, and you know, we've talked about this before, but the Amazon algorithm, it's been around for years. It's so dialed in, and its number one priority is relevancy. And so if there was anything, the most generic answer would be make sure that your ads are as relevant to your book as they can be. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to ads, when you first publish your book, the only thing the Amazon algorithm has to learn who to show your book to, basically what's relevant to your book, is your title, your subtitle, your 7 keyword slots, and the categories that you pick for your book to go in. So it's not like it used to be where, just put in search terms that are highly searched. It has to be relevant to your book. If it's not relevant to your book, doesn't matter how much it's searched, you're just going to confuse the algorithm. Amazon, Jeff Bezos said it best, and I can't even paraphrase it very well, but basically he says, we make money when we make a good customer experience when it comes to choosing a product. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it from a business perspective, that makes perfect sense. I mean, a sale is great, but a sale is a one-time thing. It's the return customers, those repeat customers, that make a business successful. And so it's not even selling your book one time that really matters. And that's why relevancy is number one, is because they want, whether it's your book or somebody else's book, they want whatever the person searched for, what the algorithm shows, to be as relevant to that customer. Because if the customer sees something that's, oh yeah, this is what I was looking for, that's a good customer experience, they'll come back to Amazon again. Yeah. But if they have to keep scrolling and they don't see anything that they're looking for, then they'll be less likely to come back. And so that's why relevancy is so paramount. And I didn't even think about it initially. It wasn't until I did more learning on it, but it makes perfect sense that the only thing the algorithm has to learn about your book is what you tell it through, again, the title, subtitle, and 7 keyword slots and the categories. Early on, people would be like, oh, I want to be in this category because it's not competitive, and so I can get the bestseller badge. Great. But if it's not relevant to your book, you're confusing the algorithm. Yeah, you're a bestseller, but guess what? Now Amazon doesn't know who to show your book to, so the organic sales aren't coming because the algorithm's confused. And that's why a lot of people have to run ads in order to get sales, because they've confused the algorithm when it comes to getting organic sales.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've noticed recently, I know that Amazon are trying to get more relevant search results. Right. But recently, when I've been researching certain books, the books that came up were in a completely wrong category. And I keep thinking about it. Oh my God, if I did that, Amazon would flag it up straight away.
Right.
How do they get away with it? And it just goes to show that you can't go on Amazon and copy what's already out there, because there's a lot of stuff on there still that doesn't work anymore, that they don't
Right.
really want us to do. So yeah, it makes total sense, because for me, I was looking for something specific and the search results that were coming up were not what I was looking for. So if I was a customer, that would be a bad experience, and I would
Right.
probably go away from Amazon and go on a different site and
Right.
look elsewhere. And I think that is why Amazon obviously want to avoid that, because they want to keep people on Amazon and keep them happy. So that makes
Right.
total sense to me. Yeah.
And especially with AI now, and there's a lot more competition for Amazon. When it comes to information, what's the best book for me to get about this? I can go to chat and ask chat. So Amazon is even more inclined to dial things in, and you really and you said if I was a customer, but if you're doing a search, you are a customer as far as
Yeah.
the algorithm is concerned. So
Yeah.
when you did the search for whatever you typed in, and you kept scrolling but didn't see anything, so you didn't click on anything, you didn't buy anything, that told it's actually the A10 algorithm now. It showed the algorithm that none of these are as relevant as what you really needed. And
Yeah.
so even when we're doing just random searches, the algorithm is always learning, just like every other AI.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes if, when people say, I've had a lot of impressions, but I haven't had any clicks, could it be that maybe they don't have relevant keywords, that their book just isn't showing up for what people are looking for? Could it be showing up for something irrelevant? And then that's why people are not clicking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you have a lot of impressions, but you don't have a lot of clicks, um, that it could be a couple things. It definitely could be that what you're searching for, or what they're searching for, isn't really what they wanted. Like you said, they could be irrelevant. Also, it could be that because you're getting impressions, so people are seeing your ad, but they're just not interested, or it didn't stop the scroll. So it could be your book cover. If your book cover, even if you could spend $300 on a book cover, it doesn't just have to be a good book cover, but it has to, to stop the scroll, it has to look like what they're expecting. So whatever niche you're in, there, just like when it comes to writing, there are tropes in the different, fiction, genres. There are tropes when it comes to the covers too, like what the browsing customer is expecting. So I always use the example of military science fiction. If your book is a military science fiction book, then on that cover you better have, either a Star Destroyer ship or a Space Marine or something. Because if you don't, then when the customer is scrolling and they don't see what they're expecting to see, they're just going to think it's a different type of book, and they're just going to keep going. Another thing is, if you have impressions but not a lot of clicks, your pricing could be off. It could be too high, or it could be too low. If your book is priced too low, people might think that it's inferior, and so, or something wrong with it, too good to be true, that kind of stuff. So that's something you want. You don't want to be the most expensive, but you don't want to be the cheapest either. So somewhere in the middle. And then also, it could be, if you did, when you're doing an ad, you have the choice of either doing a standard ad, or you can do a custom ad, which means you put in custom copy text, which I always suggest people do, because it's just one more way to convince the browsing customer to look at your book. But it could be that the copy text isn't drawing interest.
Yeah.
You wrote something there, but it's not convincing them to actually click. So you really just have to think of, when an ad shows up, why would people stop? Because that's what's happening is if you're getting impressions, it means it's showing up on screen. It's showing up on the search, but they're either not seeing it, or they're not clicking on it. And these are some reasons why they might not be clicking. If they're one way to tell if it's the copy text, or the pricing, is in the dashboard, there's now this option in columns when you customize the columns. It's called viewable impressions. So an impression means it it was going to be displayed. According to the algorithm, it's on screen. But viewable impression means at least half of your ad showed up on screen for at least 1 second. So the person at least they didn't just scroll completely by it. Like it had to be on screen for at least or for at least a second. And so if you have impressions and viewable impressions on your dashboard, if you set that up that way, then you can look and see that difference. If impressions are always going to be higher than viewable impressions, but look at the viewable impressions and see how many people actually, had time to see the ad, but it didn't get them to click. So then it's probably not the cover because they stopped enough to at least see it. It's probably either your pricing or your copy text.
That's a great tip. So that does help with being able to find out what's going on. And we've talked about, what if you have a lot of impressions but you don't have clicks? But what if you don't have any impressions? What could the reason be for that?
Oh, great question. The one of the reasons can be you just didn't give your ad enough time. I always suggest giving your ads at least 2 weeks. If and you want 2,000 impressions. So if after a week you don't have even 1,000 impressions, then it could be that your bid is too low. The days of bidding, 2 cents, 10 cents, those are few and far between anymore. It's just too competitive. You might be able to find, what they call the low-hanging fruit. You might be able to find some targets and keywords that will allow that. I've just found that while they will be inexpensive, it's not really sustainable because they're not getting the search volume. If they were getting the search volume, then they'd be more competitive. So, chances are if it's been more than a week, I would say up your bid. Typically, my default bid pricing is usually 65 cents per click. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay 65 cents per click, but in order for your ad to be considered for an auction, it needs to be, something that is, competitive. It needs to be a competitive price, So I always start with 65 cents. Another, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's very interesting that is your starting point.
Yeah.
And I know Amazon always suggests a bid, so you don't really use that, do you? You do stick to your own bid.
I do. I stick to 65 cents. It could say sometimes it'll suggest most of the time it'll suggest more. Sometimes it'll suggest less. It'll say 35 cents. I still do 65 cents.
Okay.
I like to use data that I've collected in order to make on my book, on my ads, to make my decisions, not what Amazon thinks. Obviously it's using its algorithm. So, but it also has, it's got a bias, it wants to, it wants to make money. And so I use my data to decide on that, which kind of leads to another reason why you might not be getting impressions is, that the targets that you're using, and by targets, I mean either keywords or products, depending on what kind of ad you're running. If they're not searched for, they could be hyper relevant to your book, but if they're not getting enough search, then you're not going to get enough impressions. So, you probably want something that's not just relevant, but also something that is searched. And then conversely, it could be that it's highly searched, but your targets that you're using aren't relevant to your book. And again, relevancy is key to Amazon. So either it's not relevant to your book, or maybe, your book better than anybody, your niche better than anybody, then, but if it's not showing it, it might be, it's relevant to your book, but not in Amazon's eyes. And so look at your keywords and your categories that you actually put in KDP, because when a book first comes out, again, all they have to go by is what you put in there. So if when you put it in there, you didn't know relevancy was important. So now that you know that, go back into KDP. Obviously, you can't change the title or subtitle, but you can change the 7 keyword slots to, to put in things that are searched, but also hyper relevant to your book. And then that will tell the algorithm what is relevant. And once that goes live and, it's been up for a little while, the Amazon ads will start running better. You'll get more impressions because now it's on the same wavelength. Oh, this is relevant. So those are just some of the key things. And when it comes to running ads, what used to work doesn't work the same anymore. And so again, relevancy is number one. So just having one or two irrelevant targets or irrelevant, keywords or products in your campaign can really cost you on impressions, can really start telling, if it confuses the algorithm, then the algorithm is not going to put it up for competition in the auction. And that's all ads are. It's an auction, to see who's going to be shown when they search for this particular keyword phrase.
That's so interesting. I agree with what you said about it's not what it used to be. Something has changed because I've
Yes.
noticed that a lot. The other question that people might ask is because you mentioned, it could also be that you don't have impressions because people are not searching for
Right.
your keywords. So, how would people know what people are searching for? How do we find out what a high search level would be or a high search keyword would be?
You could do, there's two main ways. One is you can use software, things like I Love Publisher Rocket, BookBolt, software like that, or you can just do it manually and just going on to Amazon. If you're going to do it manually, you want to make sure that you do it in incognito mode. So in Chrome or in most browsers, on the top right hand corner, there's going to be like 3 dots, and you click on that, and it'll either say incognito mode or it will say private window. That either way, that's what you want to use. Open one of those windows up, and then go to Amazon, whichever marketplace.com, co, whatever, and that's where you would do your search. Because when you search just normally without in incognito mode, it's going to take in your own search history, and the data you get back is not going to be as accurate. So yeah, like I said, then you just go to Amazon, type in, I mean, your book, your target. So, your genre. So the first thing is how would people, the person who's this book is for, that you wrote this book for, how are they searching for? How will they search to look for your book? And then once you type that in, type it into the browser, the browsing window. Don't hit enter, and you'll see a drop down, and that drop down will show you these are phrases that people are actually typing in to Amazon. The closer they are to the top, the more frequently it's searched. And again, this is why we use incognito mode, so your searches don't confuse things. And so look at those, because again, it's all about relevancy. So look at those keyword phrases, and write down whichever ones are relevant to your book. Just write those down. And that's basically how you search. And there's deeper ways that you can, even further to get more and more dialed in. But there are browser extensions. I know Keyword Everywhere.
Keywords everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, that'll show you more than just the initial showing. But again, I mean, with or without the extensions, I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, that's how you get the keyword phrases. And again, the higher it is, the more frequently it's searched for.
Yeah, that's a great tip as well. And so we've talked about having lots of impressions and no clicks. We've talked about not getting impressions. What can we do about
Right.
that? And we haven't talked about, what if you have lots of clicks but no sales? So what could be the reasons be for that?
I will tell you the main reason is going to be your book description. And I mean, I would say 99% of the time it's going to be your book description is off in some way. So if on your ad, because they clicked on your ad, if you have custom copy text, maybe your copy text is promising something that your your book description doesn't close the deal on. Either they're they're making it sound like two different types of books, or something along those lines. Your copy text could be a little off. But again, most of the time it's going to be your book description. It's going to be that page when someone clicks on your book, regardless of an ad or not. When someone clicks on your book, that page is called your Amazon sales page. And so on that sales page is your book description. Your book description's job is not to be the back of the book blurb. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes people make. It's not to tell all the cool things that happen in your story. Do that on the back of the book. Your book description's job is to sell your book. It's to do one of two things. It's either to encourage the browsing customer to read the next line, or ideally entice them to click buy now. That's it. Those are the only two things. If it's not doing that, it's not doing its job. Similarly, at the end of the book description, there needs to be a clear call to action. People need to be told exactly what to do, and not big, nice and fluff. No, tell them exactly what to do. Scroll up, click buy now today. If it's an adventure book, join the adventure. Buy now today. Something along those lines. You need to tell them exactly what to do. It could be that your sales page doesn't have A+ content. A+ content, when it first came out, was a nice to have. It made your book look special. But it's been out long enough, it's available in most countries, that your book just looks like it's missing something if it doesn't have A+ content anymore. Browsing customers don't know what A+ content is, but people know when something looks off. And so without knowing why it's going to look off, and they're going to move on. So again, if you've got clicks and you don't have sales, or you've got little sales, I would bet money that the issue is that book description, because everything else they've already seen. They've already seen the price. They've already seen the title, the cover, how many reviews you have, your average stars. They see all that on the actual ad itself.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's different on the actual sales page once they click is that book description. It's not sealing the deal. It's not making, telling them the last thing to do, which is buy the book.
That is a really good point. I think that sometimes people don't realize that actually they have to sell their book, and that is the job of your sales page. You have to kind of make it enticing for people. I see a lot of people, they write to me and they say, can you have a look at my sales page, they don't even call it a sales page, because I don't think they are aware that it is a sales page. They just say, can you have a look at my book?
My book page.
And yeah, and when I look at it, there's no A+ content, like you said. The description is a bit wishy-washy. And that is so important. When you look at some books that are selling really well, and you see great A+ content, great description, the way they word it, the way they hook you in, it's completely different. And that is so important. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But another question I had for you is, do you find that Amazon ads are more expensive now to run than they used to be? Do you think, because I just get that impression that it's costing more money now.
It's more competitive. Just like, the marketplace in general, it is more competitive. But when run correctly and efficiently, I actually spend less money now than I did before, per sale, I guess. My ACoS, my advertising cost of sale, is better now than it was before because of relevancy. Instead of like it was before, where you put 1,000 keywords up there and throw spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Now that the algorithm knows more about us as consumers, knows more about the books, and how people are reacting, what they're looking for, and what is relevant. It makes when you run an a campaign, I'll say efficiently. I don't want to say properly, but when you run it efficiently, it can really convert a lot better. And the short answer to how the most effective way I've seen. And I can't take full credit to this. I got this idea from Dave Chesson, who, I mean, if anybody knows, Amazon ads, it's Dave Chesson. But it's creating very hyper relevant campaigns. So instead of, again, doing 1,000 keywords, it's having campaigns with 15 to 20 keywords and having them not only relevant to your book, because that's, I mean, I always did that, but this is what I learned that has really changed ads for me, is making sure that the keywords in that campaign are relevant to each other, to the point where, like, if you're doing, let's say this campaign is going to be all about competitive books that are relevant to my book. It's got to be more dialed in than that, more specific. So I might use the covers. I'll look at the books that are comparable to mine in my niche. And again, I'll use military science fiction as an example. And I might see that all these books have a space destroyer ship on them, on the covers. And then these have a space marine. So I might do a campaign with just 15, 20 books where the covers have a space marine on it. And then I'll do a separate campaign where they've got a space destroyer ship on it. And having them that dialed in, that relevant, not just to my book, but to each other, is where, like I said, I'll do 65 cents cost per click, but if the algorithm knows, even though my competition is, bidding 75 cents a click, it knows that if for every 2 times my ad is shown, it turns into a sale, it will pick mine because it's more relevant, even though it's not the highest bid. And so it'll actually do it. So I put 65 cents, and depending on how well it's converting, I might get it down to 32 cents cost per click, even though my bid is 65. So even though I said this is how much I'm willing to pay, Amazon's like, I don't need that, because I know that it's going to convert more. So I just want to keep showing it because, again, I'm giving a better customer experience by, because it's going to convert more frequently. And so my cost per click goes down, my impressions go up because it's winning more auctions because it's more relevant. And it's, again, my cost per click is going down because it's converting better, and then my overall ACoS becomes better. So it's just, even though if you're doing it the old fashioned way, and then it definitely, I've seen it because I did it before I learned this. It definitely can cost you a lot more money than it used to because there's more competition.
Yeah.
But if you dial it in and make sure that each campaign is super, like I said, 15 to 20 keywords, but not just 15 to 20 keywords, 15 to 20 or products, if you're doing, competitive books. But those targets need to be, again, not just relevant to your book, but relevant to each other. So it gives Amazon algorithm, lets it know this is the kind of stuff that my book is competitive with. Yeah. And so if you see somebody searching for these books or these keywords or whatever, and that's when I said before that 1 or 2 irrelevant targets can really throw off your whole campaign, because then the algorithm is like, okay, well, maybe these aren't all as relevant to each other as we thought. So it can absolutely cost more money, but when dialed in like that, can absolutely save me. I used to get on average overall ACoS of anywhere between 20%, 30%, sometimes as low as 12%. But I've got campaigns running now that are like 6% ACoS, which means I'm just going to keep putting money in it because it's making me far more than what it's costing me.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, what kind of questions people might have, and I'm wondering whether people might think about what does relevancy actually mean? How do we apply that to our books? Because when it comes to the 7 back-end keywords, for example, there are certain keywords that Amazon doesn't like anymore.
Right.
And the usual thing was to say, oh, but you can put it in your ads, So, for example, competitors' names
Right.
or brand names
Hmm.
or gift for mums or gift for fathers or something like that. Would you say that's still a relevant keyword? Does that show relevancy, or how could we explain what being a relevant keyword means?
Um, so getting to the brands and the author names and titles and stuff like that, things that you can't put in your KDP keyword slots,
Mm,
you can absolutely do in Amazon ads, and yeah, those can definitely be relevant.
mhm.
If I mean, you like I said, your genre, your book. Is this book? You have to be honest. Just like
Yeah.
we don't want to hear that our book baby's ugly. You need to be honest. Is this really relevant? If someone is looking at this book or this keyword, are they if they see your book, are they really going to think it's for that? I
Mm,
mean, you just got to be honest. Um, Things like gift for, I mean, you could put that in your 7 keyword slots. I usually don't. I think that's
mm,
too general to put in in your ads. Again, you really want to be as relevant as possible. You want to leave the algorithm very little question as that your book is what this person's looking for.
mm.
So even when you take the keywords from your 7 keyword slots, only take the ones that are relevant. Don't take the ones that are paperback or ebook or books or any of that other generic stuff that's really
Yeah.
relevant to everything.
Yeah.
Everything that's on. I mean, all the other books are basically one of those. Anyway, so just the ones that are specific. So if you're writing fiction, what are what's the theme of your story?
Mm,
What are some tropes? What are some what's the genre? Things that, again, these are what people are going to search for. They're going to
mm.
search for military science fiction, space marines, things like that. So again, what are they searching for? And it's I mean, there's you can like I said, you can go deeper in that. I will say one of the most successful types of campaigns that I've run that most people don't think about is running ads to new releases in categories that are relevant to your book. I don't just do a campaign for new releases. I still dial it in more relevant than that, 15 to 20. But new releases are great because the author or publisher or both are usually promoting it, right? So why not ride that wave, right? Ride the
Yeah.
wave of promoting, and because it's something new, it's probably going to be less competitive as far as the cost per click. And also, if it's new, it probably is going to have less reviews than you have. So when you show up next to it, you've got a much better chance of winning that click. So new releases, and the one that I think is very underrated is pre-orders. If you look on Amazon, when you look at a book, it'll show you the publication date. If the
Yeah.
publication date is in the future, it means it hasn't happened yet. It's on pre-order. Target those books again, not just generically. Make sure that they're relevant. Make sure see if you can see some kind of similarity with what type of book, maybe what type of authors, male authors, whatever. And because the thing about pre-orders, someone is specifically one, it's getting promoted, like I said, by the author, by the publisher, both. So it's the same as new releases. The difference is when someone's searching for a pre-order that they want to buy, they can't read anything. They haven't gotten it yet. So they
Yeah.
can still pre-order that book, but if you're in competition, you run an ad on that, your book is something they can actually buy. So I actually will use that when I'm running that kind of campaign. I will put something like that in my custom copy text, saying that, while searching for pre-orders, here's a book you can read right now. Here's a similar book you can read right now, something along those lines. And again, those convert so much better because again, these are people that are interested in that niche, right? You've already decided that these books that are on pre-order are similar to yours. They're relevant to yours. So of course they're going to want to buy yours because yours they can read right now while they're waiting for the other one to come in.
Well, those are excellent tips, I have to say. I don't know if I would have thought of them. And I think we could talk about Amazon ads for hours. But if you had to give someone one tip, what would be your best tip regarding Amazon ads?
It kind of goes back to what we were saying early on about getting, not getting sales, getting clicks but no sales. It's that sales page. Before you even run ads, if you're running ads, honestly, I would pause them and ask yourself, is your book ready to run ads? Because again, that sales page job is to sell that book. If someone was to see that sales page, would they buy the book? Again, not just the cover, not just the price we talked about before, or the book description and the A+ content. These are all important, but also how many reviews do you have? If you take Amazon's ads course that Amazon offers, it's absolutely free. They tell you that a book has to have a minimum of 15 reviews with an average 3.5 stars or better for it to be considered ads ready in Amazon's eyes. Now, that doesn't mean you can't run ads to something that has less than that, but Amazon's telling you that this is what you need as a bare minimum to increase your chances of converting. So it really comes down to that sales page. If someone sees that, would they buy the book? Because if they wouldn't buy the book, if they see it, people think that an ad's job is to sell the product. It's not. It's to get eyes on the product. The sales page's job is to sell the product. So if your sales page isn't converting, isn't going to make a sale, why pay to have more people see it? That's the biggest mistake I see people make. They run ads to, they think it's going to, ads are going to give me sales. No, ads are going to show your book to more people. But if your sales page isn't converting them to sales, get that dialed in first. So that way you increase your chances of getting sales when more people see it.
Absolutely. Such a good point. I think this episode is probably one of the most valuable ones in terms of how to run ads, obviously, but also we all want to sell more books. And
Right.
I think whatever we can do to sell our books, because writing them or creating them is just the beginning, and it's just a small part of the whole business of selling books, but actually selling them is promoting and marketing them is the big job. So I think you've made some really, really good points here, and I've certainly learned some things that I didn't know before. So yeah, it's been a good session today.
Good. Yeah. And I'll tell you, we've talked about it in previous episodes, but this actually all came, the whole point of doing this, the idea of it all came from some of the fan mail that we got. If you're on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, there's a send us a message or send us a text. Somebody reached out from Toronto, and they said, "Hello, I've published my first book. I got reviews, approximately 15 to 20. Sounds great. Depending on which Amazon platform you check it out on, but it says I've run ads. I have almost 4,000 impressions, which is great, but 0 sales. Any thoughts or suggestions?" So that's what gave us the idea for doing this particular episode, and I hope that that whoever sent that, thank you for sending that text, and again, I hope that you've gotten your questions answered. If not, feel free to reach out. But it didn't say how many clicks they got, but yeah, I mean, we basically answered. If you're not getting clicks, this is why. If you're getting clicks but no sales, this is why. So I think we've covered that particular whatever the question in particular, whatever the issue might be. But yeah, so again, just a reminder to everybody listening in that if you want to just say hello, or you have a question you want answered, and you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure that you click that send us a text and let us know. And if you just want to say hello, send us a text and let us know where you're listening from.
Great.
Okay, so once again, this has been another great Mastermind area. A huge thank you to all the listeners and viewers who came to tag along. And if you haven't already, consider following or subscribing to the podcast. And again, leave us a review and let us know what you thought. It'll mean the world to us. Until next time, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.